And any time in life that you make things too complicated, I think there's going to be problems and there's going to be issues. My wife and I, we move really, really slow in life. Like most people run and we kind of crawl through life. Because we met in high school in 1986 and we went to college together, but it took us 8 years to actually get married. And then it took us 9 years to have our first child, So it was quite shocking at the age of 35 when my wife found out she was pregnant. Because we weren't kids people. I mean, we never held kids. We never hung out with kids. I mean, we were always the people at the restaurant complaining about the kids, And so a few months after she found out she was pregnant, she came up to me and she said, I have to ask you this question. What do you know about being a good father? And I thought about it for a minute and I said, well, I don't know anything. I said, what do you know about being a good mother? And she said, nothing, and that's why I'm scared to death. And I said, well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to buy a bunch of books about kids and parenting and babies. And I'm going to read them, and everything will be fine, So my wife, 7 years ago, has our son, and everything goes great, except she has one slight problem. She has what they call a epidural headache, which, I'm not into medical terms, but when they give the epidural to her, somehow they punch it too far and spinal fluid leaks out. And so it's not a horrible long-term problem, but these epidural headaches last for about 4 days. And it's like 1% of the people who get epidurals get this. And people who have migraines, they get these headaches, and the only way to alleviate them is pretty much lie flat and take some heavy-duty drugs. And so, people who have horrible migraines get these, and they say it's just worse than their migraines. So we come home with our 2-day-old son, and my wife is out, and so it's just me and my 2-day-old son. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, well, Ron read the books. He'll be fine, right? It was the worst night of my life by far. I mean, I think I got 20 minutes of sleep that night. I mean, I tried everything that I read in the books. I mean, I tried, the different types of holding the baby, the different listening for the different types of cries. And I mean, after your baby's screaming for 4 hours straight, I mean, you can't tell what the different type of cries are. I mean, I tried everything. I tried feeding. I tried not feeding. I tried everything, and nothing worked. And this went on for actually a few months where, I was trying all these things in the book. And I felt like a real complete failure as a father. And my next door neighbor, 86-year-old Bernice, came over a couple of months after Tyler was born. And she said, I got to tell you, Ron, you have a beautiful baby. And I said, well, thanks, Bernice. And Bernice has like 10 grandchildren. And she said, but, I want to give you some advice. And I thought, oh, no, here it comes. Because everybody was giving me advice, my mother-in-law, and I really appreciated that. And, everybody I knew was giving me advice. And she said, I'm going to tell you, all kinds of people are going to give you advice. But there's only 2 things you really need to know to be a good father for your baby. Number 1, you can never hold your baby enough. And number 2, you can never love your baby enough. And she said, you remember those 2 things? You'll always be a great father. And, when she left, I started to think about it, and I think she's right. All those books I read about the strategies and techniques, I mean, really, they were saying those 2 things. And I got so caught up in trying to do these techniques exactly right that I lost track of the big picture. And that's what's happening with customer service. People are losing sight of the big picture. And they're focusing too much on details. If you go into Barnes & Noble today and you look in the business section at the business books, there will be a whole row of books on customer service. And I don't want to demean those books or have you not read those books. But I think those books are really trying to tell you 2 things, just 2 things, and we'll talk about those.